So tonight we're having, I think, is probably one of the most important shows this gallery has ever staged. It is more than just the sum of the two artists. It is what the show is actually representing, and I think this is what I was really want to draw everyone's attention to. This is all about a romance, an epic romance. That's the title of the exhibition. An epic romance which commenced over 40 years ago. A young man, a tall, very thin, very good-looking young artist, and obviously the relationship. He found this most beautiful model, who then became his muse, something which is quite common in the history of art, where the model becomes the muse, and an intense relationship is forged as a result of that. I think I was having a chat with Lord Hamid, and he was saying to me, why are all these women? What is it? I said, well, it's this relationship that's developed between the artist and the muse. He said, tell me what a muse is. I want to know about muses. So I more or less explained to him how this developed. And I said, what you've got to have to do is you have to stand up probably from those very, very early days. There was this electricity, this connection that existed between the artist and his model. And look at every image, every female portrait, figure that Jamil, even at this point in his life, is still painting this same face, which speaks, I think, volumes about the intensity of that relationship. A couple of other things. I don't want to go on too long. I'm waiting to introduce Edward, who will speak also about the show and about Najmi and Jamil. From Jamil's perspective, when he looked for this show, he looked back over a period of 40 years. And I think he tried to segment these years. So what I was painting in this period and what in another period. And so what you have in a kind of way is it's his own personal tribute to this model, this woman who stood by him throughout all of this time. And in many cases, she was a kind of in the shadow of Jamil, who is, regarded within his own country, is very respected, revered even. And yet, the model who was mentored by Jamil, by the great artist, who in herself, in turn, became and developed her own style. She didn't paint pastiches of what Jamil was painting. This wasn't her thing. She found her own way. She found her own language. And I think we see here a beautiful collection of eloquent and extremely beautiful paintings. So it's a trip from my point of view. I'm just a dealer. I put it all on, but what a great pleasure it was to put a show of this scale, of this beauty. There are so many things to be said, and I'm sure Edward will say many more things. But I'll leave you with those thoughts, and that's what this show means to me, and I hope very sincerely that all of you enjoy this evening very much indeed. Thank you. Sorry, let me just introduce Edward, who will now speak.
Well, good evening. Thank you for coming.
Sorry,
this is, as Tony has just said, a remarkable event. It celebrates a long relationship between two artists, and two artists who continue to live and work together, whose lives are devoted to each other and to making art. So much so, of course, that Jamil now really never sets foot outside his apartment. Najmi is here not only to represent herself, but to represent him and his art. The art is, I think, particularly fascinating for several different reasons. We're hearing with the incoming of the new government in India a great deal about the Indian subcontinent at the moment. One of the things I would like to stress about this exhibition is its relationship to the Indian culture of the whole subcontinent. Jamil and Najmi are, of course, identified to some extent with Pakistan, where Jamil is certainly probably the best known living Pakistani artist. But their roots are in the whole of the subcontinent. But what you are looking at carries echoes from many aspects of Indian, using that word non-nationally, art. The picture behind me, for example, shows a use of calligraphy. Jamil not only studied in a Western art school, he studied with established masters in traditional styles, including an established calligraphist. Najmi's paintings have an obvious and very strong relationship to both to Mughal miniatures and to the miniatures produced in very small states towards the Himalayas. One of the things which is very striking about those miniatures is their emphasis on romantic love, on the, not only on the beautiful beauty of the female form, but on romantic feelings. That is, I think, very much to the theme of this particular exhibition which you're looking at now. The Indian culture has a particular fascination with the beauty of the female form, perhaps more so than any other culture I can immediately think of. That is where Western art originally rose, certainly in this Renaissance form, from the study of the male form, and only gradually transited to female mirrors. Female forms have always been something which fascinated Indian artists. They've always had this wonderful feeling for female form, for its fertility, for its beauty, and for its role in the continuation of the human race. It is particularly fascinating in Najmi's case to see a woman taking up this tradition. While there are representations of males occasionally in her paintings, including a splendid portrait of the Maharaja of Albemarle, whom you see standing here, and you see in all his glory towards the window on my left. Well, nevertheless, her great theme is the beauty of her own sex. But without, I think, this celebration, without any touch of, let us say, lesbian sexuality, anything of that kind, she is just fascinated by the beauty, the fertility, and dare I say it, the self-confidence of women. And I suspect that one of the things, to his great credit, which Jamil has always appreciated in this very special woman, is her independence of thought. That independence is, of course, amply illustrated by the fact that her paintings emphatically do not look like his. She has managed, even in living intimately with one of the great painters of the subcontinent, to create her own style and to go her own way. I'd just like to finish by calling your attention to one or two pictures of Jamil's which don't, in fact, contain representations of the human figure. There are one or two beautiful pictures of pigeons, from which Jamil has always been celebrated in the audience as a native, not quite native, but in Pakistan. Well, these pigeons are regarded as the messengers between lovers. They carry the messages of love. Their cooings soothe and excite the lovers or intending lovers. Well, I think you ought to be hearing that sound here this evening. Somebody should let a few pigeons loose because they would give precisely the atmosphere of this relationship. That is, it's not a relationship of dominance or submission or anything of that kind. It is an expression, as this exhibition is, which you see on the walls, of long continuing romantic love and of its wonderful creative result. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.